Hello and welcome to She the People. I am Deepshika. I work as a senior editor at She the People. At She the People, it has been our endeavor to bring to you meaningful and engaging conversation. Continuing this tradition, today She the People Book Club is hosting a special book launch and a conversation. We have with us Kaveree Bamzai, who has recently come out with her third book. It is titled The Three Khans and the Emergence of New India. And in conversation with her this evening will be well known author Anuja Chauhan. I welcome you both to this special event by She the People. Here is a little bit about our two guests with this evening before I hand over the session for the launch and moderation to Anuja. Kaveree Bamzai is an independent journalist and author. She was the editor of India Today and has worked for more than 30 years. She's the author of three books, the most recent being The Three Khans and the Emergence of New India. Anuja Chauhan has worked in advertising for over 17 years and is credited with many popular campaigns. She's the author of four best selling books. Her latest work is titled Club You to Death. Kaveri, congratulations on the book. And for the viewers, you can ask Kaveri and Anuja questions at the end of the session. You can put them in the comments here. Now I hand over this to Anuja for moderation.
Thanks, Deepshika. Hi, Kaveri. I've had a really interesting night reading your book. It was really fun. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the third novel, on the third work. Yeah.
Thank you. Here it is. Here is me promoting shamelessly the book that you all have to buy and read. Thank you so much, Anuja. This is a bit of a shift, a role reversal. It's usually me interviewing you.
Yeah.
You know that I'm a huge fan of your work, and I just wanted to congratulate you on the Pricey Thakur Girls finally getting made into a series. I don't know about you, but I can't wait to watch it. So let me give her work a shout out too. It's going to be on Disney Hotstar soon. But before you do that, you have to read my book.
But yes, you're just taking over. Please sit quietly. I'm asking the questions here today.
I'm so used to being the one at the one asking the questions. I'm so sorry.
Questions and all. Now don't ask questions on the questions I'm asking you. I'm starting. So the book is titled "The Three Khans and the Emergence of the New India." So I thought that was so interesting, and I'm sorry, but I'm hopelessly biased, and I always come from a cold drink point of view. So my first question to you is going to be, "Ye dil mange more, thanda matlab Coca-Cola, and taste the thunder." Our Khans burst upon the scene at the cusp of the liberalization era and gripped it as intimately as a bottle of their designated cola. They were the ethos and the spirit of the 90s. Is that what the book says?
Absolutely, and in fact, now that you've said that, I feel like writing a sequel to it, purely from the advertising point of view, because you put it so well, Anuja, So Shah Rukh is this Dil Mange More, the aspirational part of liberalized India. Everyone wanted to look cool, wear DKNY, go abroad, come down in slow motion from helicopters, landing in the Raichand mansion and all that. And Aamir was the more cool, the intellectual kind, the kind who would drink a Coca-Cola while reading the latest Malcolm Gladwell or the latest William Dalrymple or whatever. And Salman was this real desi working class hero. So actually the colas chose them beautifully, and I think that they sort of symbolized each bit of the brand that they stood for. So I really felt like writing a sequel saying that, just looking at it from the advertising brand point of view, it was a perfect fit.
Yeah, they had sort of like split the entire pie into three. It was just like one very neatly between the three of them. It's true. Yeah, and Salman was the most desi, and he was the thumbs up guy, and that was our desi cola, and that is finally the emerged and so on. Yeah,
and in a way, Anuja, I think it was also we've had this tradition, I think, except when Amitabh Bachchan came into being, and sort of took over the 70s and became everything, became comedian, action, romantic. He even played a woman. Remember that that song where he wore a sari. So I think he just became everything to everyone. But otherwise, we've had a tradition of these three heroes. We've had,
Yes.
of course,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Raj,
Yeah.
Dev, and Dilip. Then,
Mm.
even up to the 80s after Amitabh, we had Anil Kapoor, Jackie Shroff, Sunny Deol, so we've had that tradition. So I
Mm.
think the Khans just sort of, took over that, except for that
Mm.
70s period where I think everything got blown away by that one tall man who sort of strode over everything and sort of, even made gorgeous and beautiful and bohemian chicks like Zeenat Aman and Parveen Babi. He just sort of sidelined them. Otherwise, in any other era, they would have been front and center. What women
Mm.
they were, no?
Mm. No, very true. But it's so true. So they usually are always. I guess that probably happens because there's just that many movies one man can do. So
Yeah,
it's not being about like three guys in a decade or 2 decade. And of course, it's so unfair that they have a much longer run than all the girls and
yeah.
people.
But it's changing a bit now. At least the girls get to come back, after having their babies and
And
taking
then they
care of
get
their
to have
husbands.
babies on screen like Dina Gupta. Like, yeah. We are
which
all
is
for that. We're
which
all for
is
that.
so which is
Yes.
so wonderful. I mean, look at her in her 60s playing a lead. I mean, this is it. This is what we wanted to see all our lives, and we are actually getting. And shout out to Sardar ka grandson again. Okay, that's
Yes.
written by you. And again, Nina was the star of it, right?
Now, so again, the Kaveree, you please let me ask the questions, okay? So in the book you take us. So this is, so we have Shah Rukh, Salman, Aamir, ruling the 90s and the noughties and the tenties very clearly. And
Yeah,
in each decade, they're there. And a few people come in and sort of try and knock them off the perch, but then the Khans, they sort of like come back again and again and again. How is the ethos? Because you've written about that so nicely. How are the 90s different from the noughties and from the 20s? You can just see that going, how India
yeah.
changed.
Yeah, and I think the seeds of it lie, of course, with the 90s, because all the trends that we saw coming to fruition in the noughties and tenties actually began in the 90s. The three M's that Jairam Ramesh always talks about: Mandir, Masjid, Market. And all these sort of began in the noughties, and then each decade sort of took over. So the kind of soft Hindutva that, the Yash Raj films popularized, and and Karan Johar popularized, things like the wedding sangeet, or things like the Karwa Chauth ritual. They didn't really exist as a mass market phenomenon until we saw Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, and it made it such a big deal. Or even Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge. So there was this creeping sense of, this sort of Hinduization of the big screen
Yeah.
family,
Huh, we
and
have moved, like we have moved from Amar Akbar Anthony to
yeah,
this. Today nobody would make Amar Akbar Anthony. There's no way.
yeah, no way,
To a okay. Um,
yeah. Or if they would do that, Anuja, they would do it like coming into a film like Lagan, which then will have the whole jing bang diversity. It'll have a lower caste, it'll have an upper caste, it'll have a
yeah.
Muslim, it'll have all kinds of people there. It'll even
There's
have someone who's disabled. Like every section will be taken care of. But that's a very clear pitch for the diversity that we now talk about. But I don't think you'd have the Amar Akbar Anthony kind of organic,
no.
organic. I wouldn't even call it. It's not even. It's just a way of life. I think that there was. And
Yes.
that has changed so terribly, And so you had the 2000s where the kind of nationalism that was sort of just coming into being in the 90s, after post Kargil, it sort of became a thing. Nationalism was a big part of what our country was. And we also felt that we'd sort of shown the world that we had conquered Y2K. IT was a big thing. We were the leaders in IT. We were the call centers to the world. Suddenly, the world was flat. Thomas Friedman was coming to Bangalore and trying to figure out how we had done it. So suddenly, India seemed front and center. So this feeling of nationalism became a big thing in the 2000s. I think in the 10s, what happened was that nationalism acquired a virulent form. And I
Yeah.
think that is what I feel most strongly about. And that is what worries me most. That that nationalism, which was all about inclusiveness and which was all about diversity, somewhere became the isolation of the other. That
Huh.
became so important.
You
That
know,
was, I think, the biggest thing, the biggest change.
if you see Salman's movies, because I think Salman's movies are the ones that actually versus the NRI thing or the idealized thing. I think Salman's work is always the one that seems to be most bang on what's happening in the country.
Absolutely.
That's my sense. If you see a movie, even if you see Maine Pyar Kiya or you see Hum Aapke Hai Kaun and that whole Suraj Barjatya thing, that school of filmmaking is the one that is
Right.
the most, it's all Baha Baha Ramji and so on. But
Yeah.
even Suraj Barjatya would have someone like that, that Salma auntie and the Salim uncle who were, she's a gynecologist and they come and they're the best friends. He's very clear to show that, a larger kind of worldview, which now you no longer see in any of these films. Everybody is very safely, a lot of things are being othered and a lot of things are not being mentioned.
Yeah.
Um,
And yet, you're very right, Anuja. Salman, surprisingly, is the one who actually has spoken the most through his work. And I find that very intriguing because he's the one who usually, when he speaks in public, is immediately shut up by his father. The minute he gets trolled, his father has to come out and apologize for him, which I find very
yeah, which is
surprising for, yeah, a 50-year-old gent. But through his work, he's actually said the most interesting things, whether one agrees with them or not. Whether it's Bajrangi Bhaijaan or whether it's Bharat.
yeah.
I
Huh.
think they're very interesting things about the kind of India that we want to see,
Huh.
as opposed to the kind of India that we are in. That he says, very, very intriguing.
Do you think that people underestimate the power of popular culture? There's this whole school of thought which says it's just a film, yaar. Just switch off your brain, go see the movie, and don't read deeper into it. But do you think one should read deeper into it? Is popular culture, does that influence the culture of the country?
Of course, I think it's a mistake to assume that it's just a movie. I know people say that,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
I mean, the Khans are not aware of what they were doing when they were doing it. It just happened, but
hmm,
nothing happens just by accident, Anuja. I think everything conspires to, as
hmm.
to use Shah Rukh's favorite phrase, kainat comes together to, make things happen. But it truly does.
Yeah,
The film industry doesn't work in isolation, and the film industry is something that the government has been all too aware of over a very long period of time. They know the power of the film industry. That's why it was given film industry status in 1998, and that's why there was a lot of reform that happened in financial terms. The whole reliance on underworld and underground money ceased to exist. So the kind of films also changed. You saw more family oriented movies. So all this didn't really happen by accident. It's because the government realized that, look, this is an industry that actually does not recognize its own power,
hmm, hmm.
and even they think that they're just a film industry. They're not. And otherwise, you wouldn't have someone like the prime minister telling the industry to make nation building cinema. What does it mean, nation building cinema? I mean, he knows how important it is. He wouldn't go and fly a kite with Salman Khan just before the 2014 election. Who is
Yeah.
Salman Khan? Just an actor. But no, he went, and that too in Ahmedabad, in one of the most divisive cities of the country. So, of course, they know the people. Uh, people people I think underestimate it because nobody likes to give too much credit to the film industry,
Hmm.
and the film industry itself doesn't, I think, most often know its own power. I think
Yeah.
you will also know that. And they
Yeah.
think, and because a lot of things also happen by accident and coincidence and all that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think just like advertising, just like popular literature, this too is a very very powerful art form, and I think we will sort of, by not trying to understand it, by not trying to analyze it, we'll only be fooling ourselves, and we'll risk losing out on this history. I think it needs to
Yeah.
be chronicled again and again, and we need to be reminded of its power.
Yeah. With great popularity comes a lot of power. With great popularity comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
Who do you think out of these three men has wielded his popularity with the most responsibility? The choices of films, not in personal life, in the choice of films. I mean, we're discussing the work here. So, who do you think has done that the
As I
most?
said, Anuja, when you look back, it's surprisingly Salman. When you look at some of the work that he's done in the 20s, films
Huh.
like Bajrangi Bhaijaan, films
Huh.
like Tube Light, which actually advocate peace with China, or films like Bajrangi Bhaijaan, where he goes to the border and drops off this Pakistani,
Oh, but,
and
but,
there's literally,
but his films
and
are shockingly chauvinistic, Kaveri. What do you
that
think?
is, yeah, that is a problem. That's a blind spot that he has. But when you
Yeah.
look at the broader,
A major blind spot.
it's a huge blind spot. I mean, only a Salman can talk about Priyanka Chopra missing the biggest opportunity of her life, which was what, to play a role
Yeah.
in Bharat.
Really.
I
Huh.
mean, yeah, only he can think that. No one else thinks that. But I think in terms of the big secular values, the big values that hold us up, I think he would be right there. But of course, when you look at the complete body of work, there's no doubt it's Amir, who says all the right things, who does all the right things, who knows exactly what is the hot button issue when is girl power going to be a big thing. Dangal comes along. And it's not that Salman had not made a film on wrestling, but it was all about him and his muscles and his paunch and
Yeah.
his
And his wife getting
masculinity.
pregnant, and therefore he had to win a medal and so on.
Exactly. And but here you had Amir working away at the same time on this film, and knowing
Yeah.
that it was vastly different, not listening to all the naysayers who told him, oh, another wrestling film, because he knew, and he knows that. And I think that is his greatest strength. When you look at his career post 2000, you see his choices are so smart, and they are so influential. Three Idiots has changed so many lives. I know it sounds silly, but I've had so many people who tell me, I saw that and decided to change streams. I saw that and decided to give up engineering. Half our literary stars are also
Yeah.
like that. But I think when you look at his work, it is the most of the moment, and it captures the zeitgeist at that time the best. That is quite amazing. I wonder how Lal Singh Chadda will be, because it's one that has been, I think, the longest in the making, and it's also a remake. So I
Yeah.
wonder what kind of journey he'll take us through. Maybe a journey reminding us of India as it was. But I think that will be interesting to watch. But yeah, when you look at all the values that represent everything that is progressive, yeah, it would be Amir. And if you look at only in terms of secular values, just that, it would be Salman. And Shah Rukh, I don't know what has happened to him in the last decade. It has been the most disappointing decade. Don't you think,
Every,
Anuja?
isn't everybody like sitting on the back of a big flop? All three of them currently. I mean,
Or,
Shah Rukh has zero, and Salman and Amir has Thugs of Hindustan. I think I'm not sure
of
of anything
course,
after that.
humongous flop.
And Salman also was like he's making some straight
Yeah,
line.
I mean, flop in comparison to what his idea of success is, which is, of course, 300 crore, 400 crore. So, but that is it, no? I
Well,
think.
what about okay? So this is the cinema they're doing. What about fans? You know, like the way, like you said, they influence lives and so on. Is it like you either like dogs or you either like cats? Like, can you like multiple Khans? Do you have to pick your Khan, like to pick your cola and say ye wala? You know, like a, you know, I mean, I see it on Twitter sometimes, right? They have like a Salman maniacs of for Salman
Yeah.
and so on. So tell me about like the fan culture. Did you dive into that while you were writing?
Oh
How
yes,
the fans
oh yes,
different?
and of course I relied a lot on secondary sources as well. There's this wonderful
Huh, huh,
a documentary called "Being Bhaijan," which
huh.
is just fascinating because it captures that kind of Salmaniac or Salmaniac who
Hmm.
genuinely believes that Salman is celibate because he said so on Karan Johar's show. I mean, what he was doing with all these women in
Of
his
course
life.
you celebrate. How do you know? Yeah, poor Salman. He's not married. How is he? Nothing. He is
and,
pure
and
woman.
there's this wonderful character who actually exists in this documentary who says that if Salman gets married tomorrow, Brahmand will shift because automatically 3 or 4 crore
His fans will
men
also
in
get
India,
married.
yeah, will get married, and they will have families, and you will have a population explosion. And he says all this with a straight face. And he's a small town guy, is a salesman in a sari shop, which is your typical Salman fan. You have to just go outside Galaxy and Mannat to actually see the Salman Khan fan. Galaxy is like a mass of people, all of them very working class, you can tell. Mannat usually has the sightseers, very nicely
Out
dressed,
of towners,
yeah,
like
yeah,
not okay.
yeah, we're taking a selfie, this is Mannat, and various accents you hear. And of course, Pali Hill apartment of Aamir, you see nobody. Because,
Oh, his fans
because,
are too cool to show their fans.
exactly. So, so they will be the guys who will, once a year watch an Amer movie and say, yeah, this was cool, man. This is something that, he's not your typical Bollywood guy. He does meaningful cinema. And they'll quote from Satyamev Jayate, and, they'll talk about all the things that he says and does. So it's a very interesting mix of fans that but yeah, I don't think they are subsets of each other. I think they're
So yeah,
independent
right. So
independent
like war is
sets.
ideal. War. It has you're either like Salman fan or Amir fan or Shah Rukh fan. They're like
Yeah,
football club.
yeah, I think you cannot mix them, no way.
So tell me, how have you researched this book? I mean, here your descriptor saying veteran journalist, but now it should now say Khan expert because you have.
Well, one is, of course, just like you, as much as possible, I've talked to them, I've had interactions with them. Fortunately, I was in India today where I got to be sent to a lot of sets many times, and I was
I've
told,
only
you
met
just,
one Khan. Yeah, you met everybody. I've only met
yeah, yeah,
Charul.
thanks to my job, I'm very happy that I was there for 17
Yeah.
years. So, every time there would be a big movie, I would be told, go to the set,
Huh.
spend some
Yeah.
time there. And, now it's not imaginable because now things have become so organized and you have to have
Yes.
layers of
Yes. Yes.
negotiation
The
before you find
extras and yeah,
show.
crazy.
And the look should not be revealed, and
Yeah.
there'll be embargoes and NDAs you'll have to sign. Nowadays, even to get a screener, you have to sign an NDA. Those days, you would just call up, say, a Shah Rukh who would text you back himself. Those
Yes.
days, now he'll do
Mm-hmm.
it once in maybe 2 years and
Huh.
say, come to the set and let's chat. Or Amir would say, come to the set and let's chat, or come home. And Salman, though, of course, you have to be careful because,
Why?
no, because how he treats you one day is going to be very different from how he treats you another day. One day you'll be his best friend, the next day he'll say, who are you? And I'm very lucky. I've never been faced with the kinds of things that some of my colleagues have, including him manicuring his his nails with a knife and stuff like that.
Oh
I
my
have been
God.
very
Very,
lucky.
very
Yeah,
scary.
I've had very nice and very long conversations at his home, very civilized, and he's fun. He's very spontaneous, not the brightest spark, sorry to say, but a bright guy in a street smart way. Not that he's as well read as. See, Amir is an autodidact. He may have dropped out of college, but he has this great urge to improve himself. Um, which I think results in many marriages also. We will talk about that later, maybe not at all. But I think that whole idea of self improvement is very ingrained in Amir. And
Hmm.
Shahrukh, of course, is just genuinely very
Amir is
bright.
like a iPhone. It's like, there's the one, the two, the
Yeah,
five, the six, the
yeah,
seven.
yeah,
There's a new
yeah.
version. You know?
And every
And
version is a slightly better design and slightly cooler. Whereas Shahrukh, I think, has such a native intelligence, and then he is well read. He does read, and he does talk to smart people as well. And he himself has a history and a background of more than just cinema. I mean,
Hmm.
you come from a family that is not necessarily from the film industry, so you have a history which is of real life. Whereas these two guys have been very much film industry kids.
Hmm.
So that
Yeah.
is a very different world. I think you'll agree,
Yeah.
Anuja.
Yeah.
It does make you a little sheltered, doesn't it?
The yes, of course. Like if you, I mean, this whole classic nepotism thing, I assume those people are more sheltered than like Shah Rukh, who would
Yeah.
be like growing up
And
here.
also
But
this
no,
whole
I'm
thing
just
of being
saying.
orphaned at 26 and losing his father at 16, it's become so much a part of the myth of Shah Rukh Khan, that
Hmm.
so you have to love him because there's no one else to love him, and so of course you have
But
to.
that's
Who
true
else?
for everybody. I mean, everyone has to love Salman also for the same reason.
Because
Isse
the
chote
girls,
se bedroom mein rehta hai, and he's still a virgin, and his father talks to him badly, and he's so sad. I mean,
and
yeah,
yeah, and we forget the huge Panvel farmhouse that he has with
yeah.
all the fancy stuff, because he's so simple, no, and he's so much. He comes on a cycle and he goes for a run, and he doesn't. He only has one Shera, who himself is a bigger star, is as big a star as Salman.
But about
Whereas
the female fans, you're talking about Amir's marriages. So how are the girl fans different? Because we've discussed the male fans. Now
yeah,
can we like talk about how they how is that different? Does that also break up similarly?
yeah, I think for
I think girls are different, right? They'll be happy to be fans of all three, no problem.
yeah, I think so. There's one part of them that will possibly appeal to to them in a different way. I think in Salman they see a bad boy whom everyone wants to reform, right? I mean, it's the ultimate challenge, right? You have
Is
a
it
bad
the age
boy,
thing? Are the fans of certain Khans younger than the
right?
fans of other Khans?
Right, right. So I think Salman is the kind of guy that every woman thinks she will be the one to change, right? That finally he will be hers and he will be a new Salman. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't think it works, but
Hmm.
it may explain why he has a series of girlfriends. Each one is better looking than the other. Then, as far as Shah Rukh is concerned, I
So
think he
Amir,
was
sorry. So Amir is becoming a new Amir every time, but Salman is
every
only
time
the girlfriends are becoming new.
new,
He's
and each yeah, and each one is a sort of version of the original, the one who
hmm,
got away.
hmm, hmm.
Some version of
Hey,
Aishwarya.
everybody got to go finally, na? Nobody stayed, bro.
Good for them.
Good for them, man.
Yeah, and I think for Shah Rukh, I mean, he was the ultimate romantic, and I think for a lot of women, he defined what the man should be. But when you see him in Harry Met Sejal, and you see him trying to tell you that I'm ganda, and I mean,
Nobody's believing it. Nobody's buying
nobody,
Shah Rukh's Gandhaness.
nobody will buy Shah Rukh Khan as the ganda admi. Shah Rukh Khan is the one
That's
Is the one who gets, the girl gets drunk and, he's so good with her that he doesn't even touch her because he's
right.
Hindu.
Yeah, so true. Yesterday we were watching no, not Fan. We were watching Dawn. Don't even ask why. It was
Huh.
like my housekeeper's birthday, and she's like Dawn lagao, and so we are watching Dawn. And he kept and he did these cheesy things, and he was like, "I am the king," and you just want to laugh because it's like, no, no, you're so sweet. You're
Yeah.
not Dawn. You're
No,
having
you're Raj, you're Rahul, you
You're the
console
brother-in-law saying कि back दिख रही है और कपड़े पहन लो. He seems
right.
like he doesn't have those. I mean, I think he tries to have those dark depths, but it doesn't really work out. Kaveri,
No,
who do you think should enter politics out of our Khan Troika? Who do you think
you
will be
know,
best? Who do you think is maybe thinking about it?
frankly, none of them should. I think they'll all be disasters.
Why do you
Uh,
say that?
Salman will say one thing after the other. His father will have to stand up every time and apologize for it. I pity that old man. Nice gent, written a lot of interesting movies. Should be allowed to retire in peace and
Huh.
not having to defend his son. Shah Rukh is way too clever and way too glib. I think. Although we have many glib and powerful politicians in very
Yeah,
important positions, I
yeah.
think there is also a deep sense of integrity to him, whatever you say, which I think will not allow him to lie beyond a point. And Aamir, I think, is just too focused on his cinema. I think he's just too much of um, an actor who is just dedicated to his movie, not even to movies, to that movie at that point in his life where he's just focused entirely on it. I don't think any of them should become a politician. No
So
way. It would be a disaster.
what's your hope and dream for them? What should each one of them be doing?
My hope and dream is that one, Salman becomes some kind of a big action star and ends up like a Sylvester Stallone. We'll see
वो
him
तो हो
even at
गया ना.
70. Even at 70, he'll be creaking bones and all, still
अच्छा.
doing
Like Dabang
action.
23,
Yeah,
like that.
Dabang to the power of 23. Okay,
That's
so
a
he
prediction. That's not your advice or your ambition.
no, but he can't do anything else, frankly. So he may as well do what he's good at, Anuja. Right? I can't see him doing anything else and being happy. Let him do what makes him happy, what makes his fans happy.
Hmm.
And I think that is it. For Shah Rukh, what I think all his female fans would like is for him to do a proper, mature love story with, someone like a Madhuri or a Kajol, not a Dilwale, which was a disaster, but where they play their age, right? Where they don't have to, where the heroine is not half his age, and it just doesn't. It looks so creepy. And for Ahmed, I think it would just be that he continues to make the films that he does, choosing subjects that are more and more interesting, not necessarily remakes. I don't agree with this whole idea of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. True.
yeah. Why should he should be telling our stories, and he should be telling the stories that he sees and hears around him. And I think his talent is really picking up directors who tell interesting individual tales, and I
Hmm.
think that is what he should continue with. And I also my hope is also that one second. My hope is also that he makes movies for others as well, because he does it so well.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
something
Yeah.
that he doesn't do enough of.
Direction and production and so on. Yeah. Who's
Yeah,
the
he doesn't do enough of.
who's the new who do you think is well, not replaced, but who do you think is coming in now as like the new little troika? Is it like Yogi, Arnab, and Modi ji? Is it like Vikrant Massey, Ayushman Khurrana, and Rajkumar Rao? Is it like Ranveer, and Varun? Who's the new troika, according to you, the most relevant and important one?
I think it's Modi, Amit Shah, and Yogi, and maybe
They're like
Arnab as
heroes, yeah. है ना?
And maybe Arnab as a fourth, or maybe not Amit Shah, but yeah, you're right.
Arnav is
Move
like the hot hero, and everyone's like going, oh.
But it really is what's happened. They've taken over the space of these guys. They're telling the stories. They're telling the
Hmm.
stories directly to their fans. They're reaching out to them. They seem to know exactly what the fans want to hear from them. So this really makes it very tough for any hero or any actor at this point to be able to tell a mass story that reaches out to everybody. I mean, at the most, they'll capture some elements of the earlier stardom. Ayushman will have some element of the Aamir in him. Ranveer will have some element of the Salman in him. Ranveer will have some element of Shah Rukh in him. But they can never be all encompassing heroes, I think. Also, the nature of the business has changed. You've had multiplexes, you've had streaming, the audiences have become so fragmented. Where will the audiences coalesce together and listen to one story? I think it's where we see it in politics now. And I think it's the power of the storytelling that's happening there. That is what they have to compete with. They don't have to compete with each other.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's so true. Like in the old days, for Mile Sur Mere Tumhare, they would like bring all these movie stars and they would make the little film or the little
Yeah,
propaganda film. Now, like all those guys are irrelevant. They're like, "Hum hi
yeah,
man ki
no,
baat kar lenge."
exactly. And people are delighted. That's what they want to hear. That's what they want to see. So, that argument that one man dominates our landscape, it is true, but we have allowed him to dominate our cultural and political landscape. you know he also defines our culture. Every time he talks about a sanitary napkin or a toilet, or you
Hmm.
should talk about your boys the way you talk about your girls. He's talking about cultural social issues. These are things that our cinema in the 50s used to talk about so beautifully. But
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
that is the power of his storytelling. That is, I think, and I feel that is, and I've argued that in my book. I feel the
Hmm.
Khans allowed this primacy, which they had for so long. They
Hmm.
allowed it to slip away
You got
by
corrupted.
also
Yeah.
by also giving so much importance to the politics of it. By
Like,
remaining silent. Of course, people will say, what else could they do? But by choosing to be silent about so
hmm.
many things that are wrong, I think they allowed one man to dominate everything.
Do you think the fans are now disillusioned or angry or just bored and want to move on to new stuff?
I think that's all of the above. I think various fans are in various states of disarray. But
Hmm.
speaking for myself, of course, I'm also increasingly disillusioned. But I also understand that I'm not just a fan. I also want to look at their work in a dispassionate way, and I
Yes.
also want to give them credit for all that they have done. It's not that they've
Yes.
not done. I
Yes.
mean, they have redefined the way they've redefined masculinity, for instance.
Hmm.
Shah Rukh has validated a certain kind of new age man to come to
Yes.
sort of come
I
out of
think
the closet, so to speak.
I think Shahrukh is clearly the most feminist out of these people, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah.
And even if you talk about Dangal, like 10 years or 15 years before Dangal, you had Chakte India,
Yeah,
which,
and what
yeah,
a marvelous film it was. It wasn't just about female
yes,
empowerment, it was about national integration, all the values that we speak
yes.
about. So
वो
I think
वाली फिल्में क्यों नहीं बन रही? Bajrangi Bhaijaan, I think, came the closest. And kudos to Salman for making it in the regime he did.
But that is the thing, Anuja. I think that is where Shah Rukh has fallen from grace the most. I think his
Hmm.
choices have been the most disappointing. And I think
Yes.
now when he tells filmmakers like Raj and DK, you please make the film you want to make and don't listen to me, I think
Hmm.
sense is finally dawning on him, because I think what comes to him as the kernel of a very interesting film, by the time he's done with it, throwing everything that he has at it, it becomes
Huh.
nothing. Like when you look at Fan, just the idea of it is actually quite
Yeah.
interesting, because it's an analysis of stardom and
Huh.
fandom. And he's actually suggesting to the fans that you don't deserve me. I mean, that's really a huge statement
Yeah.
to make.
Yeah.
But
No,
he's
no, fine.
literally Yeah, and he's literally telling the Indian fan, "You don't deserve me. I need a broader audience, and that's why maybe I'm becoming I'm a pan. I mean, I'm a superstar beyond the borders, so to speak." So I think for him to make these radical statements, he also has to understand that. He doesn't have to be part of a 200 crore club, 300 crore. That's the problem with him. He's always looking over his shoulder, you know
Hmm.
at
Hmm.
Salman and see, अच्छा उसकी ये
Hmm.
film हो गई, आमिर उसकी ये film, and then the idea gets corrupted, and I think that is the greatest disappointment of Shah Rukh's career, for me
Hmm. Hmm.
as an
But
observer.
uncle तो सब बन गए ना. Uncleification has happened to everyone.
Naturally, I
So that's
mean,
also sitting here with our white hair. We've also
yeah, we've also become auntie G's. So, I mean, but I suppose they also in spirit. I still think I'm 18. Maybe they
yeah.
also in spirits.
Yeah.
They think they,
It's hard
yeah,
to age in the public eye. They
yeah,
don't even have the option of going away like Madhuri Dixit and coming back after 10 years and saying, "Look
right.
at me, I'm back."
I'm
It
I'm back, and
everything is
I still look so good, and I can still dance as well and all that. So it's been tough. Even Amitabh took 5 years off and then came back to us. Dilip Kumar took 5 years off, then came back in 71. Devanand, I think, is the only person who continued, and then of course became a caricature of himself. So
yes,
I think the Khans have to avoid that, and that self-referentialism, which borders on self-reverence,
yeah, yeah.
that has to. I think they have to escape that.
Aamir doesn't do that. He's the one who does that the least. No, he
Yeah,
tries very
he
hard
doesn't
to.
reference himself. Yeah, he
Yeah,
tries to do something different, radically different every time.
hmm. He
So
like
I think that,
changes directors the most. He changes
yeah,
co-stars the most, and so I mean that's what I find.
that's why I feel that he will last the longest because he's not playing himself.
Huh. We say emergent. I'm just um. So for me, maybe again I'm biased because this is the time we grew up in. But these three men and the '90s is like is like the golden era for us. It's
Right.
looking very tired and faded right now, as is the state of what we used to call unity in diversity, our idea of India, everything. That has dramatically changed, hasn't it?
Yeah. And that's what makes me sad. And I feel that's why the book ends on a very sad note, because
Yeah.
I feel that the India we grew up with, okay, we were analog kids and we had one of everything. We had three Khans, but we had one of everything else. We had one telephone, one car, one television channel.
But
And
three
yet
guns, we were rich in guns.
yeah, but we were three Khans, okay? So,
Not all guns. Yeah.
yeah. So I think, I feel, of course, but I think every generation thinks that its time was the best, of course. But I feel that we who have seen the analog and the digital age are the
Mm.
best placed in a way to understand the change. And I'm not sure the generation that comes after it
Yes.
will even comprehend the idea of scarcity or shortages or choice, because choice is now so, it's difficult, but it's also so easy because there's so much of everything. When we made a choice to watch a Shah Rukh film or an Aamir film, it was a very conscious choice. It was, we had X amount of a budget, and we would spend it in Y way. Now, there's so much of everything, and there's so many stars, so many influencers, so much content, so much of everything, and you don't have that memory of having a shortage of entertainment. I mean, I still remember watching Lagan actually 6 months after it came out, and I was
Yes.
still so blown away by its storytelling. I
Yes.
watched DDLJ 6 months after it came out, and yet the audience that I was watching it, maybe they were repeat audience or whatever. They were all as new to it.
Yeah.
As I was. So I think that relationship we had with them was very unique. I don't know whether we can have it now with the stars as they are.
But like you say at the big, the whole VCR thing when that came in, and that was like the death of cinema,
Right. Yeah.
and that was being predicted as like the movies are over, nothing will happen because VCRs have come in, and nobody's going to go back to the halls to watch. Is that also parallel you draw in the book, saying that what is happening right now with digital is
Yeah.
kind of similar to that, and
Absolutely.
great storytelling, very important, great stars, and great direction can still pull that kind of
Right.
pull audiences back and make storytelling that important and compelling.
Yeah, but I mean, will that also mean that you will get a fresh load of stars? I'm not so sure, because the whole notion of stardom is also changing. I think, you have a Pankaj Tripathi or a Nawazuddin Siddiqui. I mean, for a lot of people, they're as big stars if you look at the streaming space.
Which is good. I mean, like we can venerate the star culture, but maybe this is also very good.
Yeah,
Or
because
not.
measure of stardom is also changing. I mean, for the last 18 months, you've not had a box office. So how have
Yeah.
you chosen your movies? You've chosen your movies because
Huh.
of the story, or
Yeah.
you've chosen your movie because this actor looked interesting, or you've chosen a movie because the word of mouth was very interesting. So I
Yeah.
think the decisions are different. Decisions are taken on very different counts now.
This is
It's
true.
no longer it's a Khan movie, so we must watch it.
No, no, no. At this point, guys, anyone, please, who has questions for Kaveri about her book and her writing and everything, I've sort of shot my bolt. Be very happy to take questions at this point.
I believe there is. Yeah, can you? Okay, there's one.
Okay. Can you share insights on their social media presence, especially Shah Rukh's? It just seems to be non-stop all the time. This is from Shruti Kapoor.
But it's a very disappointing social media presence, isn't it, Anuja? It's
Yes.
so blah, and it's usually about his daughter and his son. And I mean, this is not the social media presence of a major star. I find it very, very disappointing. And as far as Salman is concerned, I mean, I have trouble deciphering it most of the time. I
Mm.
know what he usually, writes very garbled versions of what he's feeling. And otherwise it's always, oh, this is being human, this is being strong, and this is coming near you. So it's, I think, and Amir, of course, is receded from the social media
Yeah.
space altogether. But they were a very, very blah presence. No,
I
nothing very
know.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they used to speak up much more earlier. Again, you mentioned that in the book that
Yeah.
Amir, after that last time when he said, "My wife says she feels unsafe in this country,"
Yeah.
and after that we have heard nothing from Amir. He just does not comment anymore. And similarly,
Yeah.
Shah Rukh also went through that, and Salman with his court cases anyway never says anything. So
Exactly.
you think they've sort of shut down, and do you think they should? And this thing keeps coming up that in the US and Hollywood stars,
Yeah.
when they are, they speak up on all kinds of issues, and our Khans have sort of betrayed us by not performing that role. I mean, like you have corporate social responsibility, you
Right.
also have celebrity social responsibility, and what are they doing?
Yeah, and I feel that that is where they've let us down the most. And of course, they have their reasons for it. They will tell you that you don't get picketed outside your home. You don't know what it's like, when
But
crowds
everyone has
gather up.
something to lose. We all have,
Yeah.
may not be, you know,
Yeah, but I think that is where I feel that they've let us down the most. I
yeah.
think they should have spoken, and because also that not all of them speak through their work. Shah Rukh doesn't speak through necessarily his work. His films are not reflective necessarily of his politics. So in that case, you have to, and you're not just a celebrity. You're also a person of importance, and you're a person who has a mind and who has shown us that he is capable of being a public intellectual as well. And why not? We expect it from you.
But
Let's,
Kaveri, it's not just the three of them. I mean, mostly nobody speaks up.
yeah.
So, you know,
But that is what New India is all about, isn't it, Anuja?
when
Unfortunately,
what
it's
the
the
new India,
silencing.
like New Delhi and Shri Ravi Shankar, this new India.
New India, where everything that
And
was
New
old,
Delhi, it's.
yeah, which you of course have written about in Club You to Death, but all these old values. This new India is where all our old values are slowly being shredded to, silently but slowly being shredded, and I don't know what will emerge. Frankly, that requires a second book. Is
Yeah.
the book available on Amazon? Yes.
Yes. Show us again.
I
Time to watch your
want to
book.
plug it again.
Here it is. This is Shah Rukh in the Bazigar outfit and Salman in I don't know what and Aamir
No,
in Lagan.
Shah Rukh in the DDLG outfit,
Oh,
Aamir in Lagan, and Salman in Dabang, which actually correspond to their iconic movies. I feel that they're the turning points in their careers. So that was why it was chosen. Yeah,
yeah.
great.
Do you have
So,
more questions, people?
but thank you, Anuja. It's been such a delight. Thank you very much. I'm so honored that you have graced my
You're
launch.
nonsense. I was very happy and I'm so envious because just selling Pepsi my whole life, I haven't even met two other Khans. So. But
Yes,
yeah,
Shruti, it's available outside of India as well on Amazon. There, I've answered that.
this is Amazon .in .com whatever because there's all
Yeah,
people are also
Amazon.in.